It is Monday, September 21st, 2015. I am Doug Neill, and this is Verbal to Visual Video. Over the past couple of days, I have been working pretty much nonstop on 2 freelance projects, and I thought what I would do in today's video is share a little bit of my process for taking sketches, digitizing them, and sharing them online with others. What I will show you is the process that I use when creating sketches of someone else's ideas on a freelance basis, but this same process will work for you individually if you are interested in digitizing your sketchnotes so that they can be more easily reused in the future. So let me give you a brief overview of what we'll be talking about today. In this case, the process for me starts with a pencil sketch. That gives me the opportunity to get some initial ideas down, share those ideas with the folks that I'm making this sketch for, and get a little bit of feedback before finalizing anything. This would also work well if you were doing 2-stage sketch notes, where you also start with a pencil first draft before you move on to ink. Inking it is then the second stage before moving on to scanning and editing that inked sketch. And finally, the last step is to vectorize that image. One of the primary benefits of vectorizing is what I depict in that last sketch there, because once you vectorize an image, it becomes fully scalable without losing any detail. You might have noticed that if you zoom in really close or try to scale up a JPEG or a PNG image, it gets blurry and pixelated and fuzzy. What vectorized images do, often in an SVG, standard vector graphics format, what they allow you to do is change that size to any degree without losing the detail. So that makes those images very reusable in different sorts of illustrations or sketches, and it also makes them very printable at whatever size you want. So I will show you those first 2 steps here at the drawing table before moving over to the computer to handle the scanning, editing, and vectorizing. Here is the sketch that I'm working with today, and the gist of the idea here is that as we stand here in the present and look out towards the future, the things that we imagine in that future are limited to our own zone of awareness. There are certain things that we have on our radar, but even those things that we know about that are likely to happen in the future, there is of course this haze of uncertainty around all of those things because 1, we don't know what will actually happen in the future, and 2, when it comes to making decisions, we often aren't all that good at knowing what will or will not make us happy or sad or different sorts of feelings. And I think the takeaway here is that it's not worth spending too much time either fantasizing about or agonizing about the future. Better to take action and see where that leads you. So with this pencil sketch now ready to go, it is time to ink it. And what I'm going to do first with this particular section up here, this whole haze of uncertainty idea, I'm actually going to add that shading digitally after the fact on my computer. So I'm going to erase that part so that it is not kind of cluttering the clouds that I will draw up there. So that's my first step. And one thing that's nice about this process is that I don't have to worry too much about the exact placement of any individual object, because after vectorizing it, I will have the ability to move that object around if I want to change a little bit of the layout, as you will see in a few minutes. First, some ink. After letting the ink dry for a few minutes, we can then erase the pencil marks that are left. All right, so we've now got nice clean marks that will help us out in the digitizing process that will happen next, starting with the scanner and then moving on to the screen, which is what I will share with you now. Step number 1 on the computer here is to scan in the image. And the scanner that I use first does this overview scan. And then I can select which portion of that scan I actually want to get in here. So I will kind of essentially crop the space around my sketch there. I like to scan in at 600 dpi. It might be a little bit higher resolution than I need, but I'd rather go too high than too low. Scan that in. Right after scanning, I open it up with the default app for working with images on the Mac, Preview here. I like this simple tool because I can do some quick rotating if I need to, and I also do a little bit of color adjustment here within Preview just because I like the simple interface here. I boost up the contrast. I do two things here. One is boost up the contrast so that it really brings out the ink marks and gets rid of anything else there. That's particularly important when working with non-reproducible blue grid paper, which I mentioned in a previous video. This step right here helps get that out of the way so that in the next step, we're only picking out the pen marks here. What I also do, because notice when you boost up the contrast that high, if you zoom in here, it gets a little jagged a little bit at that scale. So what I also do is I bring down the sharpness of the image a little bit just to account for that, so that when I go to vectorize it, I won't have as many jagged edges there. So those are the two things that I do within Preview. Save that scan. Next step is to open up Photoshop. So I'm now here in Photoshop, and what I do in this stage, let's find that most recent scan. Pull that image in here, and what I do is I set up a couple of additional layers. And I should mention that a lot of these steps and processes I first learned from Sean McCabe's course on turning sketches into vectors for hand lettering work. And he is still doing a lot of good work, both related to hand lettering, but also related to business. So I encourage you to check out Sean Wes is the name of his brand and shows, worth paying attention to for sure. So what we can do with these two layers, if I need to, this is a really small thing that doesn't have to be fixed, but if I wanted to get rid of that little bump on this guy's head, I would take a white paintbrush, zoom in there real close, and just take a little bit, smooth that out. And you can do that. The only thing I would do here in this stage is things like that if I want to erase anything, or if for some reason I wanted to connect this all the way, which I don't care about, but to show as an example, you could do that as well by getting a black paintbrush there. Those are just a few examples. So I usually take a quick look, see if there are any details that I want to fix. Not super happy with the jaggedness of this text, so I might end up using grid paper for that for the final version of this, but I'm not going to worry about that right now, mainly just checking out the visual elements. What I think I will do here, I think I want to have this all the way sketched in and not have any spaces there, any white spaces. So I'm on my black, so I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. And I think that's all I want to do here as far as touching up this photo, this sketched image here. So then what we will do is take all of these extra layers here. We're going to merge all of the visible layers so that they all combine into one. Then I'm going to select, sorry that this is not quite on the screen, I'm selecting a color range. And that color range that I'm going to select is the shadows. What this will do is this will select anything that's black within this image, which is exactly what I want, because I want to select just my sketched marks here. And what I'm going to do is just Command C to copy and then Command V so that it pastes only those black marks on a new layer here in this Photoshop document. Because when I then make the background go away, all I have is the sketched marks that are left. That is where I leave things within Photoshop, save it all there. Now I'm going to open up the next program, Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so we are now within Illustrator. We can see our menu options because we're going to be using some of them more, maybe. But mostly use these tools on the side here. So what I like to do is switch back and forth between Photoshop here. And all I do is select the sketch marks here. Command C to copy. Switch over to Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to need a new document, so let's set that up real quick. I'm not going to worry too much about the size here. So I've got this space. Should still have those sketch marks copied. Command V to paste it in, and now I have this image pasted within an Illustrator file. The next step is to use a tracing feature, an image trace, and they have a bunch of different presets for different types of image tracing, and it's this tracing that is the thing that vectorizes the ink marks here. And what I have done is I have set up this Sketchnote preset. I played around with all of these settings once, and I'll kind of show you what they are. You basically have the option of what you're viewing. You want the tracing result. If you're just black and white, which is what I use. And then, so here are some of the things that determine how much detail is included when it takes those pixelated marks that we were playing with in Photoshop and fully digitizes and vectorizes them. So most of this I think I just experimented with and haven't really touched since the first time I set up this Sketchnote preset. But I wanted to show this to you in case you wanted to see the values that I use. 116 for the threshold, 50% for the paths, 80% for the corners, 35 pixels for the noise, and thankfully they give useful details about what each of these things mean, which you can check out. And I think what I could still play around with more is creating stroked paths instead of fills. There is a level of detail in, I guess what I would call advanced vectorizing that I do not yet have the expertise to share. But I do hope to dig into some of these tools more in the future. So hopefully I will have more to share about some of these details if I find them to be useful for you. For now, use these if you're interested in. The key thing here too is that it ignores anything that's white. So I guess we didn't have anything white at all since we brought in a transparent image, but if you did, if you just brought something in with a white background, it would essentially just delete that anyway. So that is the Sketchnote preset that I have within the image trace tool within Adobe Illustrator here. And now that it's done that, the last step here is just to expand it. And now we have all of these elements. At this point, this image here is now fully scalable. I can take it down as small as I want, and as I zoom in and zoom in, all of the detail is still there. And you can see that it has a little bit, You know, it's not quite as natural of a look here. You can tell that it kind of has that computer generatedness to it, but it's only when you zoom in really close that you see that. And you can zoom out and make it as big as you want, and all that detail will still be there. I'm holding down Shift while doing this so that I don't stretch it like that, because I want to maintain the proportions here. So one thing that you can do here, if you want to be able to move around any of the individual elements here, you can. Right now they're all grouped. If you go ungroup, what that means is that I might have to do it a couple times. There we go. So now notice I can select any of these individual sketched pieces here. And if I wanted to, I could move that individual piece around. This is where it gets interesting, because now any of these elements, if I wanted to use in another Adobe Illustrator file for some other sketch that I was working on, I could just copy and paste and use it right there. So that's where some of the flexibility comes in. I think I'll move these guys around a little bit just to play with the spacing to see what feels best, what feels right as far as the distribution of these kind of thought clouds here. What I think I'll also share with you here is how to add in a little bit of additional color. So I can select any of these marks here, and notice right now they're black, but I can go over to this color tool here and I can change any of these. I could make all of the text orange if I wanted to, make all of the images some other color. So you can fully edit that and get it to a point where there's that visual contrast that you like within the colors. What I'm gonna do, I'll leave those as orange for right now. What I'm also going to do now is I'm going to add in that haze here that I wanted to show within the zone of awareness, the haze of uncertainty about the future. To do that, I'm going to use the pen tool. And what the pen tool does is it allows you to create objects of whatever shape you want with whatever fill color is currently selected over here. So I just created this random shape that I could then scale, rotate, play around with. What I will do though, I will use that to create a shape that kind of goes in the background here that is probably a light gray color. So to do that, I'm also going to add a new layer here. Since I know I kind of want this color to be underneath what you currently see here. So I'm going to add a new layer, throw it underneath that one, zoom in, use my pen tool, change the color to a light gray. And I want this line here to be the border of this haze. So I'm just going to start here and kind of work my way down. You won't see anything yet until I kind of turn a corner. I'm using my mouse to do this. This is where a tablet would come in handy, but I feel like just sticking with the mouse for now. So now I kind of have a decision here. I think I want, I'm not sure if I want the haze to kind of come down here. I think I'll do that. We'll see how this works. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like it that way. Then continue up this side, and you can see that it's filling in that space there with the color that's selected. Here's where I have another decision here. If I want it to be totally flat at the top of this, I think I want to make it a little bit rounded. Have enough variation to give it a little bit of interestingness. And then to finish off this object, connect it to the starting point, and we now have this piece to play around with here. If I wanted to, I can move it around, but I don't because I purposefully put it there. And we've got the haze. And you can change colors as much as you want. I think I like that lighter gray rather than darker gray. But what I do want here, I would love to have these clouds be white still, as fully white as this right here. So I'm gonna go in again, and I think I will create another layer for myself. Notice the gray haze is the lowest layer here, and in between the gray and the sketched elements, I'm going to do a similar thing with each of these clouds using the pen tool, but I'm gonna change the color to white so that they maintain that white background, which you should start being able to see come together like this. One cloud down. Let's keep it going. All right, so we have all of our white clouds there. And there's not quite as much contrast between those clouds and this hazy background as I would like. So I might go back to making that haze a little bit darker, just so the clouds kind of stand out a little bit more. Though I do like the idea of having these be not quite perfectly white, because the haze is what is making them hard to see. But I guess even just having the haze in between the person that's viewing it and these ideas or these things or events or plans or wishes for the future, I think that's okay like that. What I might also do, just to play around a little bit, I might throw in a little bit of a ground and see what that looks like, if I like that or not. What is fun about this is you can do that. You can try anything out that you feel like trying out and see if you like the way that it looks. So this is currently white. I'll fix that in a second. For now, I'm gonna go in, follow the ground level. Let's try changing that color. So the final sketch of this actually will need to be in grayscale. So I only have a black, white, and various shades of gray to work with. But you can imagine playing around with any other colors that you want here. And kind of just go by feel. I think I would want this to be a little bit lighter. The cloud up there. So I would probably, if I was going grayscale, I would probably go with something like that. Keep these guys dark. I'm selecting these one by one so that I don't select the actual ground there. Here we go. So for a black and white approach, this is probably where I would stop. But to go full all the way through here, I think I will make this as big as I can. Let me see if I want to change the size of the artboard that I'm working with here, I can use this tool. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so that I can print this out. I think what I'll do, since I was kind of sketching it on a small piece of paper, I think I would like to print it out on a 9 by 12 piece of paper just to show you what that is like. And I'm not too worried about the specifics here. I just want to make it big enough so that when I export it, which I will do, I'm not worried about the layout here because I am just going to export the image itself, not the background. So if you use the artboard, it'll get all the background too. But if you don't do that, let's just throw you on the desktop. When you export it, you can choose to just have a transparent background. So when I pull that guy up in preview, got this image here. It's only showing gray because that's the background of this preview here. I'm going to turn on a printer and then print this guy out. So to print this image here, I have an Epson Stylus Photo R2000 printer, and I have a few settings set up here. I think I'm going to stick with rough draft. I have a large sketch size, which is 9x12, scale 100%, looks good. I'm glad I bumped up the size with an Illustrator there. Let's print it. All right, so check it out. We started with this, and now we have got this. Pretty cool, right? And all of these things here are fully editable, fully reusable. So I hope that you now see what it takes to take a sketched, whether it be an illustrated almost thing like this, or even if you just did some straight sketch notes right with pen from the get-go and you wanted to create a digital and reusable artifact, maybe so that you could pull different ideas from different sketch notes to create something new, a combination. You now know one way at least to do that. Hope you found that interesting and useful. Be sure to let me know if there are other computer-related things that you would like to see me address in these videos. And if you know Photoshop or Illustrator better than I do, let me know what I did wrong. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.